Next up, at UFC Macau, we have Long Xiao taking on Quang Lee. Long Xiao, 26-9 in his career, 4-1 in his last 5. He's coming off that close loss in his UFC debut. Taking on Quang Lee, 8-1 in his career, 4-1 in his last 5. He's coming off that short notice UFC debut loss against Chris Gutierrez. This is the first fight of many where I am going to struggle with the names, and it is what it is. But we have Long Xiao. He is a grappler. He's not particularly dangerous, but he is very durable as well. He's got a wealth of experience, 35 fights under that belt, and he carries... God. What?
Well, you goddamn bored in the background. I thought it was something in my browser. I was freaking out trying to mute something that was in my browser because I heard it in my headset. I was scanning all my tabs, like, what the fuck started playing?
It's the fancy hot take board, and that's the Christmas countdown. 1 month, 5 days, and 3 hours until Christmas. Anyway. Long Xiao, grappler, plenty of experience, 35 fights. He's very composed, and that probably comes from having all those fights. He doesn't panic if things are going well for the other side. And despite the record, things don't go well for him pretty often. He does find himself into some trouble in pretty much every single fight he's in because he can be taken down. He can be touched up. He can struggle with guys who pressure forward, but he typically finds a way to win, and he takes that wrestle at all costs approach. Taking on Quang Lee. He's coming off that short notice step-up loss against Chris Gutierrez. What?
Quang Lee.
Dude, I'm going to butcher these names and no offense.
Are you really doing this with like a lollipop in your mouth? Let's be fucking professional.
It's a lozenge.
Here, clicking around. And...
Quang Lee coming off that short notice step-up loss against Chris Gutierrez. He was scheduled to fight on the Contender Series, but they brought him in. I'm talking about the Chris Gutierrez fight. But they brought him in early, a full month early. So they cut his training camp off by a month. He stepped up on a few days' notice, and he actually had a decent outing. He wasn't afraid. He moved forward. He threw big. He had a few offensive takedowns. Style-wise, he is a striker. He's got that Muay Thai stance pretty light in his toes. He's got those rolled shoulders. He likes to plot forward, and he finds his range with kicks and then likes to hang out on the outside of the pocket. And this is a tough fight to break down because they're relatively evenly matched. If you use their last performance sort of as the gauge of who should win, Quang Lee on short notice against Chris Gutierrez looked really good. He was completely outstruck, like dominated in the striking, but he moved forward, no fear, got the takedowns. I think if he does that in this fight, he can have some success. Ultimately, though, I'm picking Xiao because what didn't go well for Quang was the striking. And while he moved forward without fear, his face was absolutely dotted up. I think the nonstop wrestling from Xiao is going to be able to get Quang Lee out of sorts. He can land his own strikes, get the takedowns, and Quang's never going to be able to settle in. So Long Xiao is going to be the pick. But this fight is razor thin, despite this insane line movement. Last thing before I hand it over. There are a bunch of fights on this card with insane line movement. And I think a lot of that has to do with the local market versus the broader market. Lots of unknowns here, and the money's been crazy. Minus 170 favorite is now a plus 102 underdog. What do you think, Jakey boy?
Yeah, I had, my lock of the week, one of the greatest lock of the weeks of all time, Chang Ho Lee against Long Xiao. And I'll be honest, that was a little bit closer than I thought it was going to be. That was definitely a decision that I was on pins and needles waiting to hear what was going to happen there, split decision. And luckily squeaked out that win because I thought that Chang Ho Lee was going to be able to outwork this guy Long and definitely be able to out-grapple him. And that just did not happen the way I thought it was going to. And thankfully, both these guys were extremely tough. That was a great back-and-forth fight. It was crazy, all the cage control and the knees and the clinch and all this type of stuff. Chang Ho Lee was able to come out on top. But I learned a lot about Long in that fight. His tenacity, his nonstop prowess, his takedown defense, and also the way he can scramble, because I didn't think he was going to be out-scramble Chang Ho Lee. And I think that's going to be the determining factor here. I think it's going to be probably a close fight. Whoever's able to win those scrambles at the end of the rounds to steal those rounds, or late in the second round and into the third round, the person that can out-tough those situations is probably going to win that fight. And I feel like that for a few fights. A lot of these fighters are very evenly matched. It's going to come down to heart. And a lot of these fights, I'm just picking on heart. I don't have any money on it, but I'm going Long to get it done.
There you go. We're on the same side here. $8,200 in DraftKings Fantasy versus $8,000. I trust the $8,200 because Long is more likely to wrestle. He's a much better wrestler, and I think if he shoots the takedowns first, he will get them. And as we all know, takedowns score really well in DraftKings Fantasy. If you do want to check out what the optimizer has to say, what the artificial intelligence has to say, what Artem has to say, Artem thrives in this region of the world. Artem does write-ups, 4-hour website for the road
he
to
lives
the
in that
UFC
region.
tournaments. That's what I'm saying. Asia Pac.
I didn't know if you knew.
Oh, yeah, I figured it out. He also writes articles breaking down the road to the UFC guys. He's got all the insight in the world. You can unlock all of his picks, bets as well for this card and the rest of the cards this year.
Someone
it's only $10.
said, nah, Artem is ass. Dude had a perfect card 2 weeks ago.
This is the dude.
Stupid fuck.
Nah, this dude's a miserable nerd. I already timed him out. I'm just going to ban him at this point. It's just literally nonstop negativity for no reason whatsoever. I don't need that bullshit. Anyway, what was I going to say? Unlock all the picks, the bets, the tools, and everything else. It's only $10 for an entire month. That's going to get you this card, UFC 310. That's going to get you UFC Tampa. What I will say, this card is in the middle of the night for the UFC's biggest market, which is the US. A lot of others will be able to get to watch it full day, in the middle of the day, no big deal. And that's great. If you are in the US, as much as I want you to sign up for premium just for this card, don't. Take your time. Sign up for UFC 310. You're going to get Tampa. I've been killing it lately. Don't bet on fights that you're going to be asleep for. That's crazy. That's crazy work. Don't just wake up to lost bets or won bets.
Who's going to be asleep for this card? Fucking casuals, man.
It starts at 2 o'clock in the morning our time. I will be asleep for a chunk of this card.
You're just laying in bed. Just keep your eyes open and watch the fights, man.
What I'm going to do is when I wake up, I'll watch the whole main card. The main card starts at 5 a.m. our time. I'm always up before then. No big deal. Then after the main card, I'll go back and watch the other fights, and that's how I'm going to watch it. I'm not watching it live. We do have some comments here. Made so much money off the last 11 cards because of We Want Picks. Thank you, Marty OG. Be like Marty. Follow the rest of the crew. WeWantPicks.com. Click Become a Member at the